Today I'm going to present to you probably one of the world's smallest gamma spectrometers. It's highly portable, no external power source required. Just a good old laptop like this IBM ThinkPad, which lasts for about 2 hours while running gamma spectroscopy at all times, so that's pretty good. And you just need a sound card. I'm using a USB sound card for this, as the internal sound card actually produces a lot of noise, but this doesn't have to be the case. Maybe if you have a nicer, newer laptop. And then you just need a free USB port, which supplies the 5 volts from the USB to this lovely box, the Gamma Spectacular. And the Gamma Spectacular then converts it in steps of 50 volts from 600 volts to 1100 volts, whatever you need for your lovely detector. I'm using this scintillation counter, sodium iodide doped with thallium. I also have this scintillation counter, a borehole detector, but it's a very tiny crystal in here, so it's not as good for spectroscopy. That's why I'm actually using this one today. It's a 2-inch sodium iodide crystal in the front here. It's basically like this. It's pretty much the same except larger, even from the same company. You can see the white substance, well, the see-through substance in here is the actual scintillation counter, the actual scintillation detector, sodium iodide, and it connects to a photomultiplier tube, just with some kind of light conducting fluid, which is a silicon-based gel, basically. So you just connect it like this, it goes into a base, and then from the base there's either 1 or 2 lines, depends on the detector, that goes in here. There's versions of the Gamma Spectacular available for either detectors with 1 line, which have the high voltage and the pulse rating in 1 line, or with separate high voltage and pulse. I got the version that has both individually, so I can use any type of detector with it. Now, if you want to know more about scintillation counters and how they work, I made another video about that, where I'm gonna link to right here somewhere, because otherwise it would take too much time in this video. As for the operating voltage, maybe you have a nice manual with your scintillation counter that actually says something about that. Like here it says 880 volts for the photomultiplier. So either you can use that, or you can just use the free software for gamma spectroscopy, we'll talk about that later. Or you can actually do a proper curve. That is, you just connect the scintillation counter to, for example, a ludlum or something else that you have, or just use the software on the computer. Or you can adjust the high voltage, and then you just adjust the high voltage in steps of 50 volts, and you should be left with an increasing gain, like this. And then you will get a shoulder, a plateau, where the counts don't drastically increase anymore, even if you increase the voltage in steps of 50 volts. For this you need a calibration source, for example cesium 137, which is the standard of calibration sources, and you will see this nice plateau, increasing gain, plateau, and then you will have just noise from the detector. So the ideal operating voltage for your detector would be in the first third of the plateau. For example, 850 volts, 900 volts, whatever it is. This is actually for the actual borehole detector, so this is for this one. I did not do a calibration graph like this for the current detector, because you can also do it with the software however you want. So let's see. This box basically supplies the high voltage and amplifies and basically stretches the pulses, so you can analyze it with some free software. But you can find all about calibration and how to operate this thing on Steven's YouTube channel, which I will link to here and in the video description again, so you can check that out, because otherwise we're wasting too much time with that on this video, because I want to actually show you how it works. Alright, so first of all, as I said, I already determined the proper operating voltage, which is 850 volts for this detector. I left the detector on for a while, for about half an hour before I use it, because temperature still messes with the calibration. If you want to do that properly, just let your detector run for a while, and then we can check out the actual pulses with a program called Intune. You can see Intune. And if we start recording, which is basically just recording from what the sound card hears, as if you had a microphone plugged in, except that it's a multi-channel analyzer now, you will be able to see incoming pulses. that will look like this. As I said, more about the calibration on Steven's YouTube channel and on his website, but let's just check out how this looks. So you have these pulses of different height, which will be important for your later analysis of the gamma energies, and you have background noise, which you can see right here, down here. You will have to determine the height for that, because we want to filter that out. That's not real impulses from gamma radiation, but just noise from the detector. And those here are real impulses of different height, of different energies from gamma radiation that is incoming. With this detector we get a lot of ambient radiation, even when no radioactive source is near, because it's very sensitive. It's a large 2-inch crystal, as I said. So now we see we're getting these pulses. Now we're going to use the software. Pulse Recorder and Analyzer by the same person. You can just Google for this, and I will also put the link in the video description for the software. The software is entirely free, by the way, so you don't have to pay anything for a license after a trial expires or something, and it's pretty good software. The other option would be fitzpeaks. Fitzpeaks is free to try as well, but then costs something to buy. So, well, it's up to you what you use, I guess, but today we're using the Pulse Recorder Analyzer. Let's just start the acquisition. I'm gonna check if all settings have been done properly. Yes. And as I said, the threshold will be like a discriminator. We want to discriminate the noise that comes from the detector. We want to analyze the shape, so only the good pulses get through, but as I said, more on Steven's side. And now we're just gonna start the acquisition right now, which will show up on the bottom here, and the pulse height histogram. And you can see, well, there's a lot of random stuff around. I think it already picks up the peak from the stuff I have just next to me, because of course I want to demonstrate what happens if you use a proper source like cesium-137, which, you know, has a peak at 662 keV. So let's see. Well, we can already see there's a peak coming up here. This would be the Compton continuum, because the actual photo peak happens because of the photo effect, when the gamma quantum deposits the whole energy within the detector, and the maximum energy transmission happens, and that results within the photo peak. But it could also be that the gamma quantum striking the detector only transmit part of the energy and do a so-called Compton scattering, and thus will be the Compton continuum in the front of the photo peak, the actual photo peak. I also previously did some rough energy calibration, so it shows up as 654 kV. Well, not entirely correct, but as I said, it varies with the runtime of the detector, so once the temperature adjusts, this should get better. So that's why you should wait half an hour before doing anything with it. So now you can see, this is our nice cesium photo peak. Now we could add something else, for example, let's say barium-133. It has one very characteristic peak at, I think, 360 keV, something like that. So let's just remove the cesium and add the barium while the acquisition is still running, and see if we get another peak coming up. And of course, as I said, anything below the photo peak of 662 keV from cesium-137 will be within the Compton continuum. Now we can see another peak rising up from this otherwise pretty smooth Compton continuum, and that will be the photo peak of barium-133, or, well, one of the photo peaks of barium-133. Let's check it out, and it says has an energy of 357 keV. I guess that's good enough. Not even sure if we're in the middle of the peak, but 360 keV would be one of the barium peaks, so that's pretty much our lovely barium right there. And the cesium is still existent as well. Now let's start a new acquisition and try something else. I have something quite nice here, a homogeneous aqueous standard. Let's see what's in it. So that's the stuff, just an aqueous solution, which you can perhaps see here. And let's put that in front of the detector with everything else gone. That's just demonstration equipment, so that's fine, I can stay here. And then let's start a new acquisition with that stuff in front. Have to adjust the scale here. And we can see there's a little peak coming up here already. And then you can already faintly make out that there's more peaks coming up here. So let's see what that is. Alright, so what we can see here is season 137 peak that we already know. And then there's one here at 111, approximately. Actually it's 1172, and this one would be, let's try and hit the middle. 1282 was actually 133 kV. And those two peaks here are from cobalt 60. If you put it right in the middle, you probably get the right position as well. Well, that will be the middle. 1287 now, so well, that's good I guess. And we can move over to the other peak again and try to hit the middle bit. As I said, this is 1172. So my energy calibration is a little off, as you can see, but it's still pretty good. You can still see how this works, how you can see the individual peaks. Season 137, cobalt 60 with the two lines here, and in the very front, right about here, there's actually also a peak from americium 241, but the detector is not entirely great at resolving such low gamma energies, but well, you can see it works. Let's try something else maybe. So we could try potassium chloride, for example, which has a nice peak at about 1400 kV. Or we could try uranium ore,